What if I told you the reality you know is one of many?
This doesn't make any sense.
Not everything does. Not everything has to.
This is Film Masters. On this episode, we're releasing the Doctor Strange's visual effects pack. It's in the description area below this video. It contains 10 portals, 10 shield effects, and 30 spark elements. We're going to jump straight into After Effects. I'm going to show you how to apply it. However, you can use it with HitFilm, Premiere Pro, any other compositing or editing suite, but we're going to use After Effects for the time being. And then we're going to release a HitFilm, one of the very first tutorials I'll be doing in HitFilm, showing how to use this pack in it. So let's jump straight into the tutorial. So I'm just going to open up the project and have a look inside the files. We've got the portals, we've got shields, and we've got sparks. So in the portals, we've got 10 portals, all done with different simulations. There's one that's left facing, there's also one that's right facing, some that hover above the ground, and some that smash the particles into the floor. And we've also got our shields. We've got 10 different types of shields. We've also got one which is the Shield 7, which is the protection sphere. Now, what I say by that is the way it actually pushes out, it goes like a half sphere. So if you want to make a shield where you're down on the ground like Doctor Strange protecting yourself, then you can use that one. Otherwise, there's all other different shield elements there that you can play around with. And finally, we've got one of the biggest parts of this download pack, which is we have 30 different types of spark elements. Now with the sparks, they're already pre-colored so that you can just simply throw them onto your timeline, put them onto your effect, change the screen mode to screen add, whatever you'd like to change it to. And then you can apply those spark elements to liven up and make things more believable, just like the movie itself. So let's get into a quick tutorial. Let me show you how to use these elements. Now, you don't have to use them in Adobe's After Effects. If you've got HitFilm, I'll be doing a tutorial for that shortly. However, you've also got, you can put them onto Premiere Pro or any other type of editing program or composition program that can use videos to apply effects and so forth. So I'm going to open up, first of all, Shield Test Footage 1 and select Open. And I'm going to put that onto a new composition. Now this is 4K. I'll show you by coming down here, selecting this icon, going up to composition settings, and you'll see that it's a 4K image. Now I'm going to change it. So this is one thing you may need to do, especially if your computer may not be able to handle a 4K compressed video, is simply come down to width. I'm going to change it to 1440 by 1080. And I'm going to change the pixel aspect ratio down here to the HDV 1080 at 1.33, and that will give me, as you can see, 16 by 9. And I'm going to leave all the rest of the settings the same and select OK. And then I'm going to come down to the video, press S for scale, and change the scale settings to 50%. And now I've got my video file ready to work on. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to apply a portal. We'll put the portal probably over here in the corner, and then we're going to put a shield effect on, and then we're going to throw some sparks on there just so you can see how to use all these different elements. So I'm going to come over here, double select in the project window. I'm going to come down to portal, and let's select the very first portal. I'm going to drag it and I'm going to drop it straight onto the project window. I'm going to come down to the actual element here on the timeline, press S for scale, and I'm going to change that to say 50%. And I'm going to change the screen mode here to screen. And I'm going to move the slider across until I can see the portal starting up. There it is there. So now I'm going to start making some adjustments to the actual element. I'm going to colorize it. We're going to give it a little bit of a glow so that it glows. And then we'll also throw a glow on the ground. And it's very simple to do. So I'm just going to move it into position. I'm going to put it right here on the corner here, just probably on the ground just a little bit. Now, one of the first important steps is just to make sure that you're happy with where the location is, just so when we're doing the colorization, because depending on what you're filming, if it's darker, you may have to bump the glows up, for example, but we're going to sit it right there. I'm happy with it. And I'm going to duplicate the portal 3 times. So I'm going to press Control D once and Control D twice. So now I've got 3 different elements there, one on top of the other. Now I want to make sure that my project timeline is not cluttered, so I'm going to select all 3 of those. So 1, 2, 3, I held the shift button down so I can select them all. I'm going to come up to layer and come down to pre-compose, and I'm going to call this portal. And I'm going to make sure that move all attributions into the new composition is selected, and select OK. And here we have our portal composition on the timeline. I'm going to change the mode to screen again, like so. And I'm going to come down and double select the composition so we can open it up. And here we've got all 3 videos off the timeline, which is located here. So we can jump back and forward and make those adjustments. However, still have a nice clean timeline that we can see here. However, we can apply all our effects on this one. So first of all, we're down here on number 3, as you can see here on our timeline. I'm just going to select it. I'm going to press enter on my keyboard so I can change the name of it. And I'm just going to call this portal bottom, and go to the next one, and I'm going to call that one portal mid for middle. And then we're going to go up to the top one, and that's portal top. Now the reason I'm naming it is just so it's a little bit easier, and once I've got it set up, then I can make adjustments to it. So I'm going to come down to the very first one, and I'm going to be applying 2 effects to this. So I'm going to come up to effect, and we're going to go to color correction, and we're going to go to curves. Now the first thing I'm going to do is come down to the animation presets, go to where it says RGB. I'm going to drop that down to red. I'm going to come to the curve setting. I'm going to select the middle of this line here, and I'm going to drag it up to right here, like so. And then I'm going to come and drop down where it says red and select blue, and I'm going to drag it the opposite direction. So we've got that nice orangey color. However, we're not finished there. We're going to go up to where it says blue, go back to RGB, and select the center, and I'm going to push it up to about there, where I'm happy with it. So now that we've done that, we're going to select curves up here. I'm going to press Control C, or you can come up to edit and select copy. And we're going to come down to the portal mid and press Control V to paste it in there, or again, edit and paste. And we're going to do that to the portal top one as well, so that we've got 3 different curves on each and every one of them. If I go back to the shield test footage, which is the original composition, we've got our portal. It doesn't look real at the moment, so we're going to make a few more adjustments. So let's go back to our portal composition, and we're going to go back to portal bottom, and we're going to go up to effect, and we're going to come all the way down to stylize and select glow. And now once we've done that, we're going to make some adjustments here. We're going to bring this down to around 30, might make it 31. And once we've done that, I'm going to go to the portal top one now, because with the portal middle, we don't need to apply any more effects to that. However, with portal top, we're going to apply one effect, and that is effect, blur and sharpen, and we're going to go to Gaussian blur. Now with Gaussian blur, I'm going to change the blurriness to 150, like so, and we'll go back to our test footage and see what we've got. So I'm just going to play that so far so we can have a look. We may need to make some adjustments until we're happy with the actual color that we've got, and that's just about playing around with the curves. So I'm just doing a RAM preview now. We're having a look at the actual portal and just making sure that the colors are right for the scene. I think it's a little bit too yellow in the center, so we're going to make some adjustments to that. So let's have a look at that. I'm going to select the spacebar just to pause it. I'm going to go back to my portal settings, and I'm going to go back to glow, and we're going to make some adjustments here. It's too bright, so let's bring our brightness up. In this situation, I'm going to bring it up to 75. That's the only thing that you'll need to change in the glow settings. I can bring down the curves a little bit as well in the RGB, just so it takes away a bit of that sharp brightness. And let's have a look at the footage now. So that looks a lot better. So all we need to do now is we're going to duplicate the portal. So press Control D to duplicate. And I'm going to come down here to the toggle switches modes, and I'm going to change it to a 3D layer. I'm now going to come up here to this tool, which is called the rotation tool, And I'm going to come down to the X, and I'm just going to bring that down like so. And move to the move tool, and I'm just going to bring the Z down in line to where I'm happy with where I want the actual light to be. And then all we need to do is go to Effect, Blur and Sharpen. I'm going to go to Gaussian Blur, and I'm just going to bump that up. So watch what happens with it. You'll see that it turns into a nice light. So I'm going to bring that up to say 119, depending on your scene. Obviously, if it's a brighter scene, you may have to reduce it. If it's darker, then you can bring it up and make it so it reflects more or brings more glow onto the ground. So let's do a RAM preview now. I'm just going to press the hard enter on my keyboard and do a RAM preview. So while it's doing a RAM preview, one thing you'll notice, you can see that the shadow is in line with everything, or the glow it's on the ground, and it gives that really nice illusion, and it sells the actual shot that we're doing. Okay, so here we've got our shot. I'm happy with the colors. I'm happy. If you have a look at the ground, you'll notice that with duplicating the portal and using it with the Gaussian blur to give us that nice light on the ground, you can also see it's interacting with it and it sells the shot. Now we can add more sparks to that, but before we do, let's move on to our shields. So I'm just going to hide those on the timeline so that we don't have to worry about RAM previews as much. I'm going to come back to our project window, and I'm going to go into the folder, and I'm going to go to a shield. Let's grab a shield out of there. I'm going to go shield 6. Now you can grab 1 of 10, obviously. There's that one that you can use that goes a little bit sideways, which is good for this one here. I used it in my teaser, but I'm just going to show you how we can set this up. Let's put that onto our project window, and I'm going to press S to scale it. I'm going to bring it down to say 20%. Actually, let's bring it down to 15%. And we're going to change, by going down to toggle and switches, change our mode, our screen mode to screen, like so. So that's all set up. Now, one thing I want to do, I'm just going to hide it for a second. You'll notice when I was acting, and if that's what you can call it, you can see I'm moving my hand around. So we want to make it so that it is attached to my hand. So let's start from, say, about here. So I'm going to slide my shield to the very beginning, and I'm going to turn it on. So if I go page back or page up or page down on my keyboard, that's the shortcuts for moving frame by frame through my timeline. So I'm going to go to at the very beginning when it appears like so, and I'm going to press Z on my keyboard to bring up the zoom tool and zoom into my hand. And on that shield, I'm going to press P for position and set a keyframe. And we're going to do some hand animation here. I'm going to go up to my move tool. I'm going to move it into position, and it's ready to go. We've got our keyframe in. We're ready to animate. I'm going to go to page down on my keyboard. I'm going to select it 5 times. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then move my shield to my hand, and then go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, this is a quick way of animating. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And that way we can do a rough animation of the shield without doing any motion tracking. Now, the reason I'm doing 5 keyframes instead of frame by frame, let's say, for example, I wanted to do it frame by frame. If I was to hand animate it frame by frame, I can promise you that it will be jittery. It will look jittery. It will start to jitter around, and that's, now, if that's an effect you want to do, go for it. Do it that way. But by doing 5 frames in between, you can even do more. If you can do 10 if you want, if there's not that much movement, especially if the hand moves in just one direction. My hand, you'll see, is moving forward and back. So doing 5 frames gives a nice, slow, fluid animation. And you'll see that what I mean in a second. Now you'll see I missed a keyframe there. It's because my hand didn't move, and when it did start to move, that's when I moved the actual shield. Now if I miss one in an error, I can go back to it and just move it so it sets a keyframe like so. Just going to do one more. That's all we need to do for this demonstration. I'm going to press N on my keyboard. You'll notice that I'll trim the actual work area in here. So this is all that's going to render out, and that's our workspace. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to make some color correction to this. So we've got our shield selected. All we need to do with this one is go up to Effect. I'm going to go to Color Correction, and then all we need to do is go to Curves. And again, we're doing the same curve setup. So I'm going to go back to red, grab the middle of the line, push it up to the very first corner up here. And I'm going to go to blue and bring it down opposite. And you can see we've got that nice orangey color coming in. And then I'm going to go to RGB, and that's all colors. I'm going to bump it up so you've got that nice glow. Now you can push it right up so it's really bright if you want, or you can bring it down just a little bit. Depends on what your taste is, what your shot is, and also how well lit the actual footage is that you're putting the effect onto. So now that we've done that, and that's all we need to do with that one, is we're going to go back to adjust it to fit up to 100% so we can see the whole footage. I'm going to do a RAM preview now. Before I do, I'm just going to turn on my portal effect. I'm going to have a look to see what we've got captured at the moment, and then I'm going to throw some sparks in there. Okay, so I've done the RAM preview, and here's our effects. So we've got our nice portal spinning around. We've got the nice shadow, and we've got my shield effect. It's all animated, ready to go. Now you don't have to make it that color. You can change it to any color that you like. Now another thing with the effect, we could bring it in. I'm just going to hide it really quickly, and my two shields to where my hand starts to move to about there. I'm going to press S for scale. I'm going to select it, put a keyframe in, go at the very beginning to where my hand moves, and I'm going to bring it to 0. So when I turn it on and animate it, it appears really quick. You can move the keyframes down to make it a little quicker. And another thing to do as well, come down to toggles and switches again, and we're going to make a motion blur. So what happens is when the element moves around, it's going to actually blur it, and that's what you want. So when it moves quickly, you'll get that nice natural blur about it. And that's one thing when it comes to visual effects, especially when you're playing around with short films, you see a lot of effects and they look really good, but they're missing one element. They don't look right. They look fake. And it's motion blur. If you don't get the motion blur right, it's going to look fake. And if it looks fake, well, it's not going to sell the shot, and the audience is going to pick up on it straight away. Also, one thing you'll need to understand is when you actually put that motion blur in, you won't see that until it actually renders out, unfortunately, in After Effects. I don't know about any other composition program or Premiere, but I know that when you render it out, that's when you actually see the effect in motion. Now, when you've seen my teaser trailer or at the beginning of this tutorial, when I showed you those same two effects again, it looks natural. The reason it looks natural, obviously, is because we got that motion blur in it. Now, I just want to point out another thing. Let's turn on our portal again. They've already got motion blur on it. Now, when you put motion blur down here on, it doesn't actually affect an element like what I've created for you guys. So I've actually put in a motion blur, which you can see already in there. So as it moves around, it picks up that motion blur already in the effect. So that job is already done. All you need to do is when you're moving it around, or let's say, for example, you're moving the whole element, or if you're moving the whole portal around, then you can also put that on there so that the whole element gets that effect. So let's have a look at another thing. Let's go back to our portal. If you're not happy with it, it's too bright, for example, you can come in here and start removing some of the elements out of it. Or you can even come down and start to play around with the Gaussian blur, for example. I just bumped it up to 193 and it looks like this. In fact, that probably looks a little bit better. So it might be in some situations about just playing around with some of the settings I've given you. Don't play around with any of the other settings unless you want to experiment. Again, these effects are for you to play around with your short films and such. So feel free to play around with the different colors. You don't have to make it orange. I did it orange because it matches my portal. But if you want a purple portal and a purple shield, go for it. Now, the last thing which I'm excited about, well, I am excited about the portal and the shields that I've created for you guys, but I'm also excited about the 30 different spark elements that I've put in this pack. Now they're all different, they all got different animation looks to them, they all start up differently, but they all fade out differently as well. So just like the portal, you got a start and a finish, the sparks are exactly the same. The only thing that doesn't have a start and a finish is the actual shield. That you have to animate yourself by scaling it or using a transparency in it. So I'm going to grab some sparks. I might grab 3 different ones. I'll just try Spark 6, Spark 11. And I'm just guessing these, by the way. And let's go down to Spark 18 and select OK. Now they're all different, obviously. So each one I know I'm going to get is a different one. Let's have a look at Sparks 11. It's going to open up, press spacebar. And it starts off and it does a wisp. And it sort of sparks out a little bit. This one sparks off to the right. Again, you can adjust it depending on which direction you want it to come from. And then it phases out. Let's have a look at Sparks 18. I like this one. It was probably a good one for the shield, perhaps. And let's have a look at Spark 6. This one's a good one for the shield as well. You've got gravity. It's coming downwards. Light breeze. So let's try Spark 6. So we'll go up to the composition window again so we can see what we're working with. And I'm going to put my Spark 6 onto the project window. And I want to bring it to when it just starts. So about here. So I can see where it starts. I'm going to make sure that I change my screen mode to screen. And I'm going to move into position. Before I do that, I'm going to press S to adjust the scale of it and bring it, because again, these are 4K. So I want to bring it down 50%. So I'm going to animate in here now. So I'm going to press P for position, set a keyframe, and I'm just going to cut it off here at the very beginning. And then as I move down, 5, bring my hands down, 5, and then I'll leave it there. So what I get is this. If I do a RAM preview, Spark should start up in my hands like so and move down with my fingers. And then as my hands move up, the sparks seem to come up as if it's magic. And then they sit there and then they'll start to come out as my shield appears. And here's my shield. And I've got my sparks coming down still, falling. And I might just stop that there. Bring it over to here, and I might just select the sparks again and just move them over a little bit to the right so they'll move around slightly. You won't really notice because of the fact that the sparks are falling down, which is great, but it obviously sells the shop. So here we have our effects. We've got our portal, we've got our shield with some sparks. You can throw more sparks on there if you want. I'm happy this is just a demonstration. One thing I do want to show you though, something that will sell the shot, is the glow that you get on your body when you're doing it. You'll notice that in one of my effects, when I was doing the trailer or the teaser, you'll notice that my body glows when it glows up. And to do that, it's quite simple. I'm just going to turn these off so you don't see the effects. And all I did was I duplicated, so Control D to duplicate the layer. And I went and got a mask. And what I did is I just went around parts of my chest like so. Maybe parts of my leg where the light might be hitting. And then what I did is I went up to effect, I went to my color correction, and again I went back to curves. And it's exactly the same as before. I went back to my reds and I bumped my red up, and I went back to blue and I dropped my blue down, and I went back to RGB, and I just played with that until I'm happy with the color. And then what I did is I press M for mask down here, selecting mask, select F for feather, so it brings up the feather settings, and then I adjusted the feathering out like so. That's around 247. I'm going to turn my mask off here,
And you can see I've got that nice glow on there. I can bump it up if I want to play around with it to make it a little bit brighter. And with my mask, with it selected, what I did is I selected mask again, put a keyframe in there, and then I just moved around with my body, moving the actual mask around as a motion mask, so therefore parts of my body were glowing. Now, you don't have to make it that orange like that color, for example. You could bump it down a little bit, or again, press T for transparency and adjust the actual image. You could even make it flicker if you wanted to animate a flicker in there. So if I put all my effects back on, you'll see under my body, you'll see I've got that glow there. So that's how I faked the glow of the actual effect there. If I wanted to, I could even go up and get my face the same color. And just hide the mask so you can see what it looks like. So that's how I got that effect there. And I did the same on the ground. What I did is I animated the ground with the actual curves. And so when in my test, when I threw the actual shield out of my hands because it was playing up, for example, I animated the ground so it disappeared on the ground and faded away. So that's what sold the actual effect. So this is how we're actually setting up our Doctor Strange visual effects pack from Filmmasters, free for download for you guys. Again, it's down in the description area. Download it. If you put it into a video and you upload that onto YouTube, into any video, make sure that you give me a shout out, link out this video. I may update some of them files in there, so just be mindful I will be changing the link. Do not share the download link anywhere. Now, once you've done that, all you need to do, and you're happy with your effects, is you just go to File, and what you want to do is you want to export it and add to render queue. Go to the settings. I always change mine to H.264 as it's a very good compression setting. Select OK, and then just find the location where you want to save it. Call it what you want. Select Save. I'm just going to write delete on this because I'm going to delete it out of the pack. Select Save, and then you just hit Render. Once the rendering's done, you're all done.
And that is how we use the Doctor Strange visual effects pack into your own projects. If you want to become a Filmmasters subby, it's pretty simple. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. You can like us on Facebook and or on Twitter. And until next time, don't just film it, master it.